What's up, guys? Welcome back to Keeping Up with the X-Men. We are moving back to X-Men Gold, and it is time to talk about issue 14. And before we even get started, let me just say this. X-Men Gold 14 has one of the coolest covers that I have seen on one of these titles for the X-Men Gold, at least. Holy crap. The covers for X-Men Gold have been tremendously good, but this is just fantastic. I really like this cover. This is so awesome. This defines awesome. It really does, guys. I'm loving this Magneto. I can't get just everything about this. The way the girder is actually going through Kitty Pryde, and then just the old man Logan and his claws are like bending, and like, oh man, there's so much awesome happening on this one. Like, this is the cover. But can't spend all day on the cover. Can't do it. So let's go ahead and actually get into what we're doing here, and that's to review. That's to try to keep up with these X-Men Gold. So back to Team 1. This is Prestige, Cyclops, now Longshot, and Kitty Pryde. Now, if you remember right, Longshot jumped in at the very end of the last issue. But anyways, basically what's going on here is that they're sent back in time because of what Mojo's doing. So we know that we're not actually going back in time, but you get the idea. But we go back in time to one of the major 90s events where Magneto is... This is back when Magneto was very arch villain, and he's very long speeches and things of that nature, and that's kind of what they were playing with when they did this. But anyways, basically what's going on is he comes down, he's all crazy, lightning magnetism because magnets, and some, their costumes change. And their costumes change into some hardcore, awesome 90s stuff. Like, this is pretty awesome throwback. And even Longshot goes out of his way to mention, hey guys, your costumes are way 90s. That right there is something else. And then Longshot gets thrown across the room like boom! And so Magneto's going crazy. And before Magneto can really even get anything off the ground, once again, we are going to give credit to Cyclops. This is one of those things, like, everybody gives Cyclops shit. Everybody, all the time. It's never different. It's always the same thing. It's always Cyclops, loser. People don't like him. And so what I'm trying to do is give a little bit of credit to Cyclops when we actually can. And this is one of those moments that I think we can actually back up and give him a little bit of credit, because he goes after Rachel, and he's just totally arch villain while he's doing this, and he's dropping, he doesn't exactly get a chance to drop his Magneto speech and stuff like that, a little bit, but not really too big. And Cyclops, he just has this moment where he realizes they're following him. That's their leader right now. And you got to understand that these younger X-Men, they did not get a chance to grow up and experience the things that the other X-Men have experienced. They don't know about just how ridiculous Magneto really got and how dangerous he really truly is, and how much every time somebody has managed to trust him, he's found a way to shit on them. And I'm sorry, that's kind of been a thing in this, that I'm not trying to drop too many cuss words or anything. But look, that's what he does. Magneto is just a horrible person when you get right down to it. He can never, ever be fully trusted. He's always got some kind of scheme or something like that, which goes to the way that they write him. Because really, I think Magneto does best when he's the questionable villain, when you can say, I think Magneto was right. But most of the time, a lot of these writers, they get stuck in the trope of turning him into the Lex Luthor-esque villain, where he has to be evil because he has to be the bad guy, and I don't agree with that. But right here, we're seeing one of those moments where the writers took him and just went 100% home run. This guy's a bad guy. There's no questioning it. Listen to his evil rant. And Cyclops just blasts him. One bolt. That's all it takes. One optic blast from Cyclops. If Magneto is not paying attention, done. He's done. That's all it took was one hit. And it just so happens that during this moment, he kind of let it slip that he is following Magneto. That the X-Men Blue are taking orders from Magneto. And Kitty goes at him about this. She's like, wait a second. That's why you guys left? You guys are in league with Magneto? What is happening? What am I missing here? Explain to me right now. And then he's like, yes, we are in league with Magneto. But before we get to dive further into that, we're going to jump to Team 2 here, and we're going to go back to the Asgard thing that was going on. Now, this is Old Man Logan, this is Storm, Iceman, and Angel. And if you thought that the Asgard thing was a little bit boring, well, the writers must have too, because we didn't stay in Asgard long. We got very little panels. In fact, in this book, we got a panel of Asgard. A panel. That's it. And then they were like, okay, you know what? Let's move on. And I don't disagree. I think that it was a good thing that they jumped out of the Asgard thing as fast as they could, especially because they jumped us directly to the extinction agenda. Like, this was kind of a... Look, guys, I'm never going to go into too much detail into the past unless I have to, but basically the magistrates were a huge deal in X-Men history. You can Wikipedia that if you want, but I'll be here all night if we try to play the expert game, and that's not what we're doing here. We're keeping up with the X-Men, and so we got to move on. But if you have a chance to check out what the extinction was, it's a pretty big deal in mutant history, in the X-Men history. But this kind of reverts them into the costumes of that time. So we got the Archangel here, and then Wolverine goes to his brown costume, and Iceman looks like Iceman. Yep. So fighting. This basically leads directly into big-time combat, and during the combat, Angel gets knocked down. Boom! He hits the ground. Doo-doo! And immediately, this woman grabs him, picks him up, and breaks his neck. Crack! Iceman is like, oh my God! You know, he's like, Warren, no! And he jumps in, and he gets pissed, and he's like, I'll kill you! And then oh man. Then all of a sudden, he's mad, he's not thinking straight, he rushes directly in, training out the window, and he just gets blasted away. And this is not the old Iceman. This is the younger Iceman. So the younger Iceman does not know the extent of his powers. And this very well could kill him because, quite frankly, Iceman could survive things like this. But young Iceman, he had not discovered his full range of powers, and this book is insanity, okay? Because we don't even get a second to take this in. Angel, dead. Iceman, dead. Followed immediately by Old Man Logan, dead. He gets hit right in the stomach. Bow! You know, up through the chest, across the heart or whatever. And he's like, oh, you son of a... And he goes down. And as soon as he goes down, Storm rushes over. And there's this moment with the two of them where it almost looks like they might have a thing for one another. And like I said, as I'm coming back into X-Men, I don't know. Now, I know they have in the past. There's been a fling or two kind of on, not necessarily a completely emotional level. I believe it was a lot more physical when it came to Wolverine and Storm, but they have had a bit of a history, and a little bit of it shows right here because she immediately ran to Logan and she gets gunned down. Now she's on the ground too. So we just lost the whole team. The whole team. Like what? The whole team? This kind of blew me away. Now, I will say in the back of my mind, I've kind of got it here where I'm like, they're not going to do this. Now I'm starting to think that just like when Bloodstorm went down and I was like, man, they just introduced her. We're going to lose her that quick? Maybe, just maybe, these characters are not dying. And Mojo takes a second to say, hey, I know what you're thinking. We're not going to kill off all these big Golden League members because these guys are what make the money. These guys are the golden geese, and I know we're not going to trash them, right? That's what you're thinking, is this is all just some BS. But look at these examples, and he does take us. It's through a couple screenshots behind him, but he does take us through the idea that X-Men has been pretty famous for losing big characters. Nightcrawler has died. Xavier did die. Jean Grey did die. Colossus has died. This is not new for the X-Men to lose big members. But I'm still going to say one of two things is happening here. The most likely thing that's happening here is that they've more actually been incapacitated and that they'll wake up somewhere or something like that. And then there's the other possibility that these characters are dead. Now, I think this one is a long shot, but maybe, just maybe, this is a hardcore maybe. This is the longest and furthest maybe ever. Maybe Marvel is cleaning house. Maybe the idea of bringing back a couple X-Men like Jean Grey and possibly Xavier through what's happening with Astonishing X-Men. Maybe Marvel is cleaning house and dropping the X-Men to a more manageable level. I don't think this is happening, but we're just going to put it out there that there's a slight, very, very slight possibility. So then we jump back to Team 3. Now, Team 3, if you remember right, Team 3 is Jean Grey, it's Jimmy Hudson, it's Colossus, it's Beast, it's Nightcrawler. This is that team. During the fight, while Jimmy is hacking people up and Beast is kind of dumbfounded at all the monsters that are like calling for him to join and everything like that, all of a sudden, Jean gets this, it's like a psychic interruption, basically. And she spins around to see Madeline Pryor. Now, she does make a comment. She's like, oh, we've had enough Goblin Queen. But let me tell you something. This is another one of those moments where I wish that they would have went ahead and they would have done it. Like, they're both in the same outfit, okay? But I'm telling you, they should have swung for the fences on this. They should have done the big, ridiculous, never, ever gonna work ever on a real person under boob costume. Because I'm telling you, it would have been so great for Jean to turn around and see basically her older self looking like that and made comments. Young Jean Grey is the perfect way to reference the ridiculousness of the history of the X-Men because she sees some of the stuff. It's been going on for a while. She always sees things that are going on or whatever, and then she gets mad or she says something or she responds. She's the one that noticed that Wanda, when the Scarlet Witch comes back into the books during All New X-Men, when Jean Grey first shows up, the young Jean Grey, she gets a psychic vision of the Scarlet Witch wiping out the mutant race. And she turns around and she's like, you made her an Avenger? Are you kidding me? Do we mean nothing to you? She committed mass genocide. She's an Avenger? She was mad. And you know what? A lot of people were irritated at the events that took place. And a lot of people said the same thing outside of the comics. The fans, there were a lot of fans that were not Avengers fans or something like that. They were X-Men fans that they were like, you know what? I am kind of mad about it. I am irritated. Why is she an Avenger? By now, she should either be extraordinarily misunderstood or she should be like, I don't know, she should be a villain or something. And I was kind of on that too. Like, it's so weird how some characters can do terrible, terrible, terrible things and they get to stay heroes. And Scarlet Witch is one of those people. And they used Jean Grey to kind of call that out, to say, are you kidding me? This is how we treated what happened? She should be an enemy to all mutants. But she wasn't, because she got all sorry and everything and joined with the Phoenix when Hope Summers acquired the Phoenix Force, and she like restored mutant kind of. But I don't know. To me, I've never completely forgiven her, and I know a lot of other people that never have either. And it was interesting to hear Jean kind of talk on my behalf when I was reading the all-new X-Men. And this is once again one of those moments where she turns around and she sees Madeline Pryor, and Madeline Pryor is in kind of the right costume, but it's been modified, and I think it's the whole, like, I don't know if it's trying to respect women or something like that. But look, guys, I say it again, this is a fantasy setting. These men are permaflexed. It didn't respect me. And okay? Like, this isn't about respect. This is a fantasy world. An exotic, immense superpowers doing the supernatural, looking supernatural. These are not normal people, and they should not do normal things. And if you want to orchestrate just how ridiculous these worlds can be, you should have showed me that original Madeline Pryor crazy underboob costume, and you should have let the young Jean comment on it. And I know I keep coming back to that, and I know some people are probably like, this guy really wants to see it. Why doesn't he just go on the internet and see it? I could. That's not where I'm getting at. I just feel like it's a missed opportunity to kind of break the fourth wall and comment on it in your own continuity rather than running away from it. So this feels like you ran away from it. Like, instead of addressing it right here and right now and having her walk out in that ridiculous costume and letting Jean say, "Are you kidding me?" That's what you're wearing to battle. Like, can you try to cover up? Like, you could have had her be the whole thing that kind of swatted at the 90s or whatever and said, "Oh my God, we were a little ridiculous in the 90s. Like, we put a G-string on Wonder Woman." Like, these kinds of things were happening in the 90s. The characters were outrageous. Like, the men were built like the Incredible Hulk. Every normal guy was the Incredible Hulk. It was absolutely ridiculous. And then, like, the women were these, like, tall, super curvy, ridiculous costumed. Like, I mean, look, guys, look up Wonder Woman's awful 90s costume and tell me that doesn't deserve a little bit of a throwback and a comment by the Wonder Woman of today. Like, what the hell was I thinking? And you'll see where I'm coming from, that this really should have been addressed. But we still got more book to talk about. So now we're going to jump back to Team 1. And we go back to Team 1. Magneto is down. They're kind of talking about what's going on here. Like, why would you throw in with Magneto? What are you guys thinking? Look, this is getting ridiculous. I need to know what's going on, okay? Because this is unacceptable. You know what kind of person he is. Whether you've not been here or not, you know what kind of person he is. And at the same time, he's like, well, it was kind of Jean's decision. And at that point, we actually see kind of a moment with Rachel where she actually says, yeah, my mom doesn't have the greatest of judgment. I've made a bit of an error. I was going on and on and on about the Madeline Pryor thing. No, you know what? That's fine. We'll continue from where we are because I can circle back to it here in a second. The environment changes again. And this takes us to the whole Avengers versus the X-Men thing when Scott and the others had developed the Phoenix Force, when the Phoenix split into 5 other forms and it jumped into 5 bodies. And the 5 people got it, which I believe was Peter, Emma, Namor, Ileana, and Scott Summers. And yes, if you take those characters and you put them in a row and you use all their first names and you use the initials, the 5 Phoenix Force was penis. I don't know if that's intentional. But I remember the first time I ever noticed it, I was like, oh my God, did they do that on purpose? Because that seems like you almost had to have done that on purpose. But anyways, they find themselves here at this moment, and they're a little remiss. Some of them, as I said, they don't really know. They didn't live through these events. So they're like, oh, well, this won't actually be that bad because, hey, the Avengers, they were friends. And then the X-Men that have been here are like, actually, no, we're in trouble right now. Captain America takes out Kitty Pryde. She's not paying enough attention. She gets hit by the shield. She goes down. And before we really get a chance to escalate this fight, because it starts to kind of get underway, but we almost immediately jump out of this fight to go back to what's happening with Madeline Pryor and Jean Grey. And this is one of those instances where I feel like, I don't know if it's like fate or the idea of falling back into legacy that we have to put Scott and Jean back together, that they have to be a couple. And I mean, we've already done this. So I don't like the idea of backtracking. And I guess to be fair for these characters, it's not backtracking. And they are kind of different people. But I feel like we've done the Scott-Jean thing forever. And if we want to do it again, I don't know. I guess it is going to be weird. If we ever bring back like adult Scott, is he going to go with Emma or is he going to go with Jean Grey now that Jean Grey is coming back? These are questions. And all, of course, for me, that's what X-Men is the drama. And I guess I am interested to see how these two younger characters that have seen where they could end up, how they would handle a relationship with each other when they know how tragic their relationship really is. But at the same time, they've also had a chance to see what they can do for one another and how much love there really was between these two adult characters and what they could be. So I don't know, but basically, Madeline Pryor is like, I can see why Scott loved me more. And young Jean is like, what did you just say? And she's like, listen, face it, honey. And Jean Grey is just like, bam, and knocks her right out. And she's like, get off me. She's like, I thought that's what you said. I'm going to have you know right now, Scott never loved you more than me, basically. Because that's basically what that was, is she basically was like, oh no. No, Scott never loved you more than he loved me. It was like a moment of, I don't know if I should say that this was like a moment of, I don't know where I'm trying to go with that. It could have been like a jealousy thing, or maybe Jean is really starting to realize that they are kind of fated, that Jean and Scott will always be together. It's just kind of one of those things that Batman will always kind of flirt with the idea of being with Catwoman, and not necessarily that even if they ever got together would it ever work out, but fans want it. And maybe that's where they're going with this, is that there's a chance that we could see young Jean and young Scott get back together. And you know what? If we bring old Scott back to life, maybe that's the best of both worlds, because maybe old Scott could be like, I'm more comfortable with Emma. She supports me or whatever. Who knows? For whatever reason, he could be with Emma. Young Scott could be with Jean. That's two iconic relationships right there that we get to stick with. And then older Jean, I don't know where she would end up or where she would go, but I would be more than willing to watch them experiment, to be fair. So, I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what's going to happen. But the last page shows us that Mojo is really picking things up here. He's now starting to take scenarios and blend them. Like, we have what looks like the Horsemen on this last page that are kind of sitting in the background, and a flaming Phoenix Force-powered Sentinel. I don't know what that is, and they don't either, because they even ask, they're like, when did you guys deal with that thing? And they're like, never. This never happened. Like, they're like, oh my God, this is a big problem. This never happened. So now we got these, like the Brood is here, and we've got like the Horsemen of Apocalypse, and there's this Sentinel that looks like he's powered by the Phoenix Force, and this book just continues to be awesome. It's ridiculous. I love the X-Men Gold. They never cease to amaze me. Every single issue, while I might disagree with certain things, every single issue holds my attention. Every single issue makes me wonder what's going on next. And every single issue makes me ponder where these relationships and where these characters are going to go. We're getting character development. We're getting awesome battles. We are getting amazing cliffhangers that guarantee I'm buying the next book. We are getting well done stories. I'm enjoying X-Men Gold. I've heard from a couple of people that they don't like X-Men Gold and they feel that it's repeating stories or something like that, or that it's not the X-Men they grew up with and things like that. Guys, to me, this is the X-Men. We are back. We are doing what we are supposed to do. X-Men Gold is easily one of my favorite titles. The X-Men Gold and X-Men Blue are solid books. They finally brought X-Men back. I really, truly believe that, guys. If you're not enjoying these books, I am sorry. I hope that maybe they cater to some of your love as well. But they've got my attention, man. They've got my money. X-Men Gold is tearing it up. I'm loving everything about it. This is probably the longest one of these videos I've done. So we're going to go ahead and get out of here because I'm now surfacing. I'm now sitting at like 26 minutes. And guys, you are now all caught up with the X-Men Gold. See you later.